This is the True Crime Nation podcast with your hosts, Todd and Brian. If you're enjoying the show or have suggestions for future shows, you can email us at truecrimenation@outlook.com. And as always, let's start the show. This is the True Crime Nation podcast. I am Brian, and with me as always is right over there Todd. What's up, buddy?
Hey man, are you ready to talk about some more disgusting and twisted stuff tonight on the show?
Absolutely.
Tonight we're gonna talk about the torso killer.
The torso killer. That sounds exciting.
It does. I haven't done a lot of background on this guy, but it just sounds sick and twisted. So I thought we could check it out and see what's going on.
Yeah. Well, just his name is sick and twisted. Richard Francis Cottingham.
Yeah.
What a name.
Well, who would name somebody that, for God's sake?
You always know if they have three names, if they say their three names, that's the serial killer.
True. Yeah, they do. They do that.
That's right.
So what do we know about this guy? What's his background?
Well, let's see. Richard Francis Cottingham, born November 25th, 1946, is an American serial killer and rapist who murdered at least 17 young women and girls in New York City, in New York and New Jersey between 67 and 80.
Jeez.
That's 1967 and 1980.
Right.
Including 9 convictions and a further 8 official confessions, he was nicknamed the Torso Killer and the Times Square Killer. In 2009, decades after being convicted of 5 murders in New Jersey and New York in 1981 to 1984, Cottingham admitted to a journalist that he had committed at least 80 to 100 perfect murders, that's air quotes, perfect murders of women in various regions of the United States. 4 surviving victims testified against Cottingham. He was convicted in 3 of the abduction rape survivor cases and acquitted in 1. He has been incarcerated in New Jersey state prisons since 1980 and has accumulated multiple life sentences.
How did I never hear of this guy back in the day?
I don't know. Me either. This one just slipped right by.
I don't remember this. See, back in the 80s, I would have been a teenager. We would have been teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, because we heard about all the rest of them.
Yeah, we knew about Ted Bundy and all that stuff, right? But we never really heard about this guy.
Nope.
Interesting. So he's killing women in New York City.
And New Jersey.
Apparently, he's taking them from Times Square area. How do you do that? I mean...
Again, back then, man, it was easy to do. There was no cameras. There was no cell phones. There was no interwebs. There was no nothing.
You see somebody, you're walking down the street of New York City and somebody's screaming help. It really doesn't appeal to you to stop what you're doing and go help somebody in New York City, because who knows what the hell's going on. Shit like this, apparently.
Because there could be 1,000 people standing around, somebody kills somebody and nobody saw anything.
Right.
So
it's a different way of life in that city. If you've ever been there, people just it's
just apparently how it still is.
So hiding out in broad daylight, basically, this guy was just getting away with stuff.
Just picking them off. And then he said he committed 80 to 100 more, in his words, perfect murders across the country.
It's possible.
Is he lying? Possible. Is he just trying to get publicity? Is he just...
Right. Did he
pinpoint? For real? I don't know.
Did he take anyone? Did he lead anybody to a body? One of those 80 to 100 bodies? I mean, if he does, then you take him seriously, right?
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we'll find out as we go.
Or more seriously.
All right. So let's get into his life now. Let's see. Since we got a background of what he actually did. Cottingham was born on November 25th, 1946 in Mott Haven, Bronx, New York City. The first of 4 children. He has 3 sisters. In 1948, his family moved to DeMont, New Jersey, and in 1956 to Rivervale, New Jersey, where he began his fascination with bondage pornography. In 1964, Cottingham graduated from Passaic Valley High School in Hillsdale, New Jersey.
Interesting.
Yeah. In 1964, after graduating from high school, Cottingham worked in Metropolitan Life, where his father was a vice president at the firm's headquarters office in Madison Avenue in Manhattan, New York City. So,
Wow.
so he comes from a pretty
Yeah.
well-to-do family. I mean,
That's that's pimping, man.
yeah, he started in the mailroom and eventually became a mainframe computer operator after taking computer courses. Wow. In October 1966, he became a computer operator for Blue Cross Blue Shield Association in New York until his 1980 arrest. At Blue Cross, Cottingham worked in an office with fugitive serial killer Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer. He's on our list too.
The dating game killer. He knew the dating game killer.
Yeah, worked with him.
Son of a bitch.
Who was living in New York in 1969 under the alias John Berger. Neither man has claimed to have been aware of the other, nor is there any evidence they were familiar with one another prior to either's arrest.
That's
I don't
very
know, man.
ironic.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, you would think that's like that old joke. You stop and pick up a hitchhiker and he says, "Hey, how do you know I'm not a serial killer?" And the guy says, the chances of two serial killers being in the same car are astronomical.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, for that's a very coincidental thing. The dating game killer, for the listeners, if you don't know, this guy went on the dating game and he won. And he ended up going on the date with the girl and he killed her, right?
Yep.
And they found out he had previously killed other women as well.
Yep.
So he literally used the game show to get a victim.
Yeah, but that's another show.
That's another show. Anyway.
So I don't know. I think they had to have talked.
Think they knew each other and traded secrets?
Maybe.
Or maybe this Rodney Alcala kind of pushed Richard Francis Cottingham to that next level, Maybe he was
like
kind
a
of on the
mentor.
fence about it, and
Like
then
a
he met this
mentor.
guy, and this guy said, "Oh yeah, you just need to go ahead and move forward."
Maybe. Again, we'll never know. Although I think this guy's still alive, isn't he? Isn't he in prison? Is that what they said?
I don't know. Maybe.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out.
Marriage and divorce. On May 3rd, 1970, Cottingham was married at Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Queens Village, New York. He and his wife had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. In April 1978, his wife filed for divorce on the grounds of abandonment and mental cruelty, refusing to have sex with her after the birth of their 3rd child, staying out until early morning, and leaving her with insufficient household funds. His wife withdrew the petition upon his arrest in May 1980 until after he was convicted in the first trial in New Jersey, then refiled the petition and completed the divorce proceeding. I wonder why she did that.
Maybe she didn't want to be known as his wife. Maybe she wanted to keep herself on the down low. Not that wouldn't happen anyway. I mean, if you go back in time and you look at these serial killers, it's about, I don't know the ratio, but a lot of them are married and have families.
Yeah, that's true. On October 3rd, Cottingham was arrested on several lesser charges throughout his killing spree. The police were not aware of his murders at the time, nor were they aware there was an active serial killer at large in New York, New Jersey area.
How would you be?
That's I mean, back then, again, there was no cameras, there was no instant information, so they didn't, unless somebody's reporting these things, they're not going to put it together.
Yeah, and if you're going to be a serial killer, you do it in a massively populated area such as New York City. It's very hard to pinpoint,
Right, you don't do it in small town America. You don't do it.
For you inspiring serial killers out there, take that advice.
Well, let's not. Let's hope none of them are listening to this.
I would think that they're smart enough to know that, but yeah, no, that's what happens. I mean, that's what it comes down to. That's part of their MO, is they go after hugely populated areas, so it's easier to
where there's high crime.
There's more victims there and everything. So
Yep. On October 3rd, 1969, Cottingham was charged and convicted of drunk driving in New York City and sentenced to a $50 fine.
wow,
Wow.
don't happen. That doesn't happen nowadays. I'll tell you that.
Nope.
Not $50 anyway. Not that I know. I don't know that, but I've had
It's
friends
not.
and yeah, no.
On August 21st, 1972, Cottingham was charged and convicted of shoplifting at Stern's department store in Paramus, New Jersey. Paramus. That's just fun to say.
Promise.
And was sentenced to pay a $50 fine or 10 days in jail. He paid the fine.
$50 back then, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, not for him.
No, not for him.
He was a mainframe operator at freaking being the biggest insurance companies in the world.
Born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Mm-hmm. On September 4th, 1973, Cottingham was arrested in New York City for robbery, oral sodomy, and sex abuse on the complaint of a prostitute and her pimp. Neither complainant appeared in further proceedings, however, and the case was dismissed. So he was eating a prostitute's ass and they complained about it?
I don't know what he was doing. I didn't think about that when you said that.
That's what I'm trying to from put that. This together. Oral sodomy. I mean,
did he force her to do something she didn't want to do? I mean,
maybe,
she's a prostitute.
Maybe eating ass wasn't a thing back then. I don't know.
The part that gets me is the fact that it was a prostitute and her pimp.
Yeah, well, maybe he was eating pimp's ass.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe he was going to kill both of them.
All right, that's weird.
This whole thing's weird so far.
Yeah. On March 12th, 1974, Cottingham was arrested in New York City for robbery and unlawful imprisonment on a complaint of a prostitute. Once again, the victim did not appear in further proceedings, and the case was, what is he doing to these prostitutes?
Right. That should have been a sign right there. If you get a guy who's out there abusing prostitutes,
I'm sure that happens more often than you.
Then these guys are liable
to be. Not taking anything away from the world's oldest profession, but
no, true. But I'm saying, beating up and hurting and whatnot. You definitely got
right, but it doesn't say what he did. I mean, the first one does kind of, but the second one didn't say.
Mm-hmm. He was doing something he shouldn't have been, obviously, because if he's got prostitutes complaining about him, then the guy's...
then he's doing something weird. Cottingham committed his first known murder when he was 20 years old. On October 28, 1967, he strangled Nancy Shiava Vogel, a 29-year-old married mother of two, in Little Ferry, New Jersey. Her nude body, hands bound in front of her, was found on October 31st under a blanket behind the passenger seat of her car parked in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. She had last been seen 3 days earlier when she left home, stating that she was going to play bingo with her friends at a local church. The murder remained unsolved until Cottingham confessed and pleaded guilty to it in August 2010. Wow.
It just goes to show you, man, there's monsters out there, like we said. I mean, this lady was
say it all the time.
A down-to-earth mother. She was going to church to play bingo, for God's sake. And
yeah,
this guy.
And he what? Got her on her way into the church, would be my guess.
Who knows?
Man. On February 15th, 1968, Cottingham killed his second known victim. After failing to return home from a trip to buy shoes at the Green Acres Mall in Valley Stream, New York, 23-year-old Diane Cusick was found raped, beaten, and strangled to death in the backseat of her car, which was found parked near the mall. Cottingham was not charged with this murder until June 2022, when he was implicated by DNA.
That's just this year?
Yeah.
See, we talked about this, DNA.
Mm-hmm.
It'll get you.
That's nuts. It's just amazing. That was in 1968. Both of those were 67 and 68, and they just got solved.
Yeah.
Starting in
crazy?
2014, Cottingham confidentially admitted to Detective Robert Anzalotti of the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, New Jersey, the murders of 3 teenage females in 1968 and 1969. Wow. Jackie Harp, age 13, July 17, 1968, who was randomly ambushed by Cottingham as she walked home in the evening from school band practice, in Midland Park, New Jersey, and strangled with the leather strap of her bag. Irene Blaze, age 18, who vanished on April 7th, 1969 in Hackensack, New Jersey, and was found face down in 4 feet of water in the Saddle River, strangled with a wire, a cord, or perhaps the chain of a crucifix she was wearing. Denise Falaska, age 15, abducted July 14th, 1969, in Emerson, New Jersey, while walking to a friend's home, and found the next morning in Saddlebrook, New Jersey, by the side of a road next to a cemetery, strangled with a cord or the chain of her crucifix.
This guy was a strangler.
A raper and a strangler.
What? Yeah, was that his motive? I mean, was he like, I'm going to rape these girls and then I'm going to have to kill them because they can't identify me?
Maybe. I don't know. It all goes back to that bondage porn that he was getting into, because he ties them up and then he strangles them. Does he rape them? That's the question. Does he rape them first, though, or does he kill them first?
I bet he killed him first. He sounds like a sick enough bastard to do something like that. In fact, I'll bet you that a lot of the rape murder cases that happen, I bet you they were murdered first. As sick as that is.
Well, yeah, I guess. And then they don't fight, I guess. I don't know. That's just mind-boggling. The Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, the BCPO, exceptionally closed the 3 cold case murders, but for several years kept this secret from the public, except for the victims' family members. That's weird. Why would they do that? In December 2019, forensic historian and author Peter Vronsky, on the eve of publishing the revelation in his 2nd edition of Serial Killers, The Method and Madness of Monsters. Ooh, sounds like a good book.
Yeah, to check that out.
Made it public with BCPO cooperation in a community meeting in Midland Park, the site of Jacqueline Harp's murder. Anzalotti and BCPO subsequently confirmed the exceptional closures of the 3 schoolgirl murders in 1968 to 1969. So
the guy's a sick
they kept
ass,
that
man.
secret until this guy wrote about it. I don't know why they would do that.
Well, a lot of things are kept secret, right?
Yeah, I guess. In August 2022, Cottingham confessed to the murder of 26-year-old Lorraine McGraw, who was beaten and killed March 1st, 1970 in Rockland County, New York. In December 2022, Cottingham was convicted of Cusick's 1968 murder and admitted to another 4 killings during 72 and 73 in Long Island, New York. Mary Beth Hines, Laverne Moy, Sheila Hyman, and Maria Amaretta Rosada Nieves. Wow.
So you would think back in 1960s, 70s, if even in New York City, if people are being found strangled to death, you've got to know that something's going on.
Yeah.
Either you've got a serial killer, mob hits, something is not right. And just to overlook those things and not try. And maybe they were. Maybe they were trying to figure out what was going on here.
Well, they had to. Yeah, I agree with you. They had to have put that together because people had to have been reporting these people missing.
Right. But there's just so much that goes on in New York City alone, and you're talking New Jersey too. I mean, the thousands and thousands of deaths, murders that happen weekly.
Right.
I guess weekly. I don't know. Monthly.
Daily. Now,
This
when you watch
this
the news,
probably this may have just kinda been a side thing that they just kinda kept adding information to as they went and weren't taking it seriously at that time. I don't know.
maybe. I don't know. That's weird. That's weird. Hmm. Facilitated by the work of forensic historian Peter Vronsky and the Cottingham victim family member Jennifer Weiss, the daughter of D.D. Goodarzi.
D.D. Goodarzi.
Dida Goodarzi. One of the New York torso killing victims, Vronsky and Weiss had been meeting with Cottingham in prison since the spring of 2017, counseling him to make the confession. Angelotti had spent 15 years interviewing Cottingham, working toward the confession, which raised the total number of victims attributed to Cottingham to 11 at the time. He claims to have committed between 85 and 100 murders. Cottingham was convicted of 1977 to 1980 murders in a series of 3 trials during 1981 to 1984, 2 in New Jersey and 1 in New York. On December 15th, 1977, the body of X-ray technician Marianne Carr, 26, was found brutally beaten and strangled in the parking lot of the Quality Inn Motel in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. But police did not link the murder to Cottingham until after his arrest. Carr had marks around her wrist and ankles, indicative of handcuffs, traces of adhesive tape around her mouth. Her body also bore numerous cuts and bite marks. She had been abducted from a Little Ferry apartment complex where Cottingham had previously lived and with his wife, and where he would later leave an unconscious victim who survived.
Oh, she lived. Or somebody lived.
Well, one of them did, yeah, not that one.
So he did
not Marianne.
He did bind her up and torment her and torture her before he killed her.
He did. Again, it goes back to that bondage stuff that he was. On December 2nd, 1979, firemen in New York responded to an alarm at the Travel Inn near Times Square. Inside, they found the body of 22-year-old sex worker Didi Goodarzi and another unidentified woman. Both bodies had their hands and heads removed. Good Lord.
Jesus.
And had been doused with lighter fluid and set on fire. The missing body parts were never found. As Cottingham was fleeing the scene of the torso murders, he briefly encountered a 23-year-old Peter Vronsky, who was attempting to check into the Travel Inn while in New York on a film production assignment. The brief encounter later inspired Vronsky to write his serial killer histories and paved the way for his prison meetings with Cottingham some 40 years later. In a 2009 interview, Cottingham admitted to the murders and claimed that he severed the heads and hands of the victims to prevent their identification, as he was acquainted with Goodarzi and had been seen with her in a bar the night before.
Okay.
Now it's coming together. On May 5th, 1980, a motel housekeeper found the body of 19-year-old Valerie Ann Street in the Hasbrook Heights Quality Inn. The victim's hands were tightly handcuffed behind her back, and police would later lift a fingerprint matching Cottingham, the only fingerprint successfully found from any of his known murders. Street had been bruised and beaten around her head and body and bitten on the breast, and had traces of adhesive tape on her lips. Numerous shallow cuts were found on her breast as well, indicative of torture. Street had died of asphyxiation. This murder was later linked to the earlier murder of Marilyn Carr, who was left in the same motel's parking lot. So he's, creature habit. Goes to the same places.
Well, yeah. How come we never heard about this guy before? You know, you hear about the Jeffrey Dahmers and the Ted Bundys, but this guy was just as sick. He was sicker, in my opinion. He's cutting
Sounds
off
to
heads
me
and
like he
hands,
was, like he was worse.
torturing victims before he kills them,
Yep.
strangling them to death. This guy was
Mm-hmm.
terrible.
Yep.
How come we've never heard of this guy before?
I don't know. It's, I don't know, man. I don't know, but he's definitely worse than the rest of them so far.
Yeah.
1980 arrest and charges. On May 22nd, 1980, Cottingham picked up 18-year-old Leslie Ann Odell, who was soliciting on the corner of Manhattan's Lexington Avenue and 25th Street. At some point, she agreed to have sex with him for $44 around dawn. They checked into the same Hasbrook Heights Quality Inn where he had 18 days earlier left Valerie Street's handcuffed body under a bed to be discovered by a housekeeper. Cottingham offered to give Odell a massage, and she rolled onto her stomach, straddling her back. He drew a knife and put it to her throat as he snapped a pair of handcuffs on her wrists. He began torturing her, nearly biting off one of her nipples. She later testified that he said, "You have to take it the other girls did. You have to take it too. You're a whore, and you have to be punished." She lived.
Yeah.
Odell's muffled cries of pain became so loud that the motel staff, already spooked by the murder 18 days earlier, called police and then rushed to the room demanding that Cottingham open the door. Cottingham was apprehended in the hallway by arriving police officers. When arrested, he had handcuffs, a leather gag, 2 slave collars, a switchblade knife, replica pistols, and a stockpile of prescription pills.
That's your serial killer starter kit right there.
Yeah, no kidding. The charges listed in Cottingham's New Jersey indictment included kidnapping, attempted murder, aggravated assault with deadly weapon, aggravated sexual assault with armed, rape, aggravated sexual assault while armed, sodomy, aggravated sexual assault while armed, fellatio, possession of a weapon, possession of controlled dangerous substances, secobarbital, amylbarbital, and diazepam. Damn.
I don't know what those are, but they sound like they're very strong drugs.
Yeah. Sound like them do some knocking out. In April 1978, after his wife had initiated divorce proceedings, he kept a locked room in a basement apartment of the house in which they lived in Lodi, New Jersey. Following his 1980 arrest, police found in the locked room and in the trunk of his car personal effects, which they traced to 2 of his victims.
Yeah, so he wasn't so smart after all, was he?
Well, yeah, he got away with it for a long time. But, that's usually what they do when they actually catch up to him. They find stuff that they've kept.
Right.
During the early 1980s, Cottingham was convicted of 5 murders in 2 separate New Jersey murder trials in 1981 and 1982, and in a single trial in New York City in 1984 for 3 murders. He pleaded innocent for decades, insisted he was being framed, until admitting in 2009 that he had actually perpetrated the murders he was accused of. Cottingham was apparently forensically aware, and in the 13-year period during which he is known to have committed at least 17 murders in the pre-DNA era, only one fingerprint belonging to him was ever recovered from the ratchet mechanism of handcuffs left behind on Valerie Street. A case based on his signature pattern was built against him, combined with the testimony of 4 surviving victims, as well as pieces of his victims' jewelry and other items found in his possession after his arrest.
Yeah, you're going to keep souvenirs. That's going to bite you in the ass.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, or fortunately, whichever.
Right.
So, but I mean, they other. I hate to say it, but Jeffrey Dahmer kept body parts. So,
Right.
you know,
No, they do. But like we said, back then, it was easier to do this stuff. With technology nowadays, it's
yeah.
it's
Well,
hard to be,
like you said, this is all the pre-DNA era, and they only found one fingerprint. So,
I bet you there's a lot of guys out there who are inspiring to be serial killers. I hate to say that, but it's
I hope
true.
not, man.
Or have those wants, needs, urges, what have you, to do something terrible to people, but they probably don't because they know they're going to get caught nowadays. Back then,
Right,
people didn't care as much, if they were crazy anyway. But
right,
yeah,
because they could get away with it as long as they wore gloves.
a serial killer isn't just some dummy that's out there killing people randomly. I mean, they think this through and they
No,
process
most of
this,
these
and
guys are
they're pretty smart.
genius level. If I mean
They
Bundy,
just
they were all very smart.
they just have a wire wrong somewhere that
Yeah, unfortunately.
makes
In
them want to do the things.
2010, he pleaded guilty to the 1967 murder of Nancy Vogel. In 2021, he pleaded guilty to the 1974 kidnapping, raping, and drowning of Lorraine Marie Kelly and Marianne Pryor. He also confessed to 3 murders of New Jersey schoolgirls in 68 and 69 in return for immunity from prosecution. In 2022, Cottingham confessed to the 1970 murder of Lorraine McGraw. His additional confession to a 1974 murder was discounted by Rockland County Police.
Hmm.
In 2022, he was arraigned from his hospital bed for the 1968 murder of Diane Cusick. The link was found through DNA evidence. Authorities believe it to be, thus far, the oldest criminal case to be prosecuted by DNA evidence.
Hmm.
He pleaded guilty to a December court appearance and also admitted killing 4 other women decades ago in Long Island, New York. Mary Beth Hines, Laverne Moy, Sheila Hyman, and Marie Emerita Rosada Nieves. Cottingham's case has been discussed in several books and documentaries on serial killers. 2 focused entirely on him. Rod Lease, The Prostitute Murders, The People versus Richard Cottingham, and Crime Scene, The Times Square Killer on Netflix 2021, which we just talked about.
Yeah, we were going to mention that. This is on Netflix, and I'm going to watch it.
I am too. This is very interesting. Crime Scene, The Times Square Killer. That was just
The
last
Times
year.
Square Killer is what they're calling it, not the Torso
Yeah,
Killer.
right. Well, that was his two. That was his 2 names. They named him the Torso Killer and the Times Square Killer.
It's just crazy that people get away with. I mean, you can't imagine, living life. You don't want to imagine that there's people like that out there that can do that to people, to people you care about, people you love, yourself for that matter.
You would hope that there's, I mean, that human beings wouldn't even do that to another human being.
Yeah.
That would be the hope.
But we're sick, twisted individuals. We are the human species.
Man,
we do a lot of things good, and we do a lot of things bad. We have it in us, and it's out there. So people just have to be aware and understand that, albeit, like we say, technology nowadays, it's a lot harder to get away with stuff. So that kind of deters a lot of people from things, I'm sure.
But they still do it. So always, when you're out and about, always be aware of your surroundings.
Yes. Always be with someone, have some sort of weapon, spray. Don't be parking in dark parking lots or walking to your car in dark parking lots, because that's when this stuff happens. Right. Obviously he was grabbing these girls, either if they weren't prostitutes, he was grabbing young girls on the way home from school. A lady was going to play bingo at a church, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm. And, even back then, things weren't as well lit as they are now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And is this guy still alive?
That's what I'm getting. I mean, it didn't say he died. It just said his last conviction was in his hospital bed.
So New York doesn't have the death penalty, I take it, or New Jersey. Amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that Netflix series out. Sounds really cool.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, that sounds good.
Another good episode under the books, man. Thanks for being here with me,
man.
and
always fun, always learning
this stuff. Listeners, thanks for listening, and remember,
monsters are real. This is the True Crime Nation.